Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Don Toothaker is a director of photo adventures for Hans Photo and Video. That means he leads photographic workshops all over the world. Cuba, Tanzania, Alaska, Italy, Bosque del Apache, you name it, he's been there. His motto, photograph what you feel, is his guiding mantra, and it's a mantra it took him some years to grow into. Please welcome Don Toothaker to Bump in the Road. Don, tell us a little bit about where you are right now and what the place means to you.
Well, good morning from Acres in Solon, Maine, which is a little tiny town in the central part of the state. As maybe you can catch a little bit of a glimpse from behind me, it's just a log cabin that my family built 30 something years ago on a big chunk of land that's nothing but a tangled mess of trees and woods and forest and critters. And this is my favorite place in the world, and it's mine now. And I come here as much as I can for a variety of reasons. I enjoy the work that I do here, but it's also the place where my photography began in earnest. I'd owned a camera for a little while. I was very happy documenting my life on program mode and being curious when I had good results and not understanding why I had bad results. And it was my curiosity about nature that made me go into the woods here and want to photograph lady slippers or deer or moose or birds or whatever. And it was here that I started to say, I want to do this on purpose. I don't want to get something and not understand why it came out well or didn't. And it was where I'm a self-taught photographer completely. And this was the most pivotal place for my learning and my frustrations and my failures and my occasional cursing and wanting to take up golf as a hobby instead. But I stuck with it, and I still come here and I'm still amazed and I still learn and I'm still motivated and inspired by everything that's in the natural world here, including the people. It's everything to me. So I'm really, really happy to be here to talk to you this morning, because this is like the epicenter of what I do and who I am and what I do.
How far are you from the water?
Well, we're right smack in the middle of the state. So I'm not near the ocean. I'm about a 2-hour drive from the ocean. And I have 64 acres of woods here. And there's a stream and there's a pond, courtesy of some beavers now. But I'm really close to a major river, Kennebec River, which is only about 3 miles away, and several ponds and lakes, which provide me with an abundance of opportunity for, shooting water, shooting over water, wildlife on water, kayaking, waterfall streams. It's all right here, and it's nice. I wish the ocean was a little closer, but I'll take what I got.
How would you describe your photography? Is it landscape oriented, people oriented, and how has it evolved over time?
That's a great question, because that's something I incorporate into my teaching. I don't like to say like ever I'm a photography teacher. I kind of regard myself as a photography coach. So I say that I coach people. Um, in my coaching, I constantly tell people the world is like way too big and way too interesting and way too beautiful and way too full of amazing things to ever limit yourself. And why would you want to do that anyways? So I'm an advocate for being the best photographer you can be in all things. Now, in that, there'll always be something that fits a little bit better than something else. But I think we have the responsibility as photographers to do the best we can at everything. If I, from a practical standpoint, if somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, Don, we want to pay you to do some architectural photography," or "Hey, Don, can you do some corporate headshots at a local bank?" I want to be able to do those, and I want to be able to do those as well as I can with with whatever resources I have and my creativity. But the reality for me, like, the basis of what I do is nature. I mean, I love the outdoors. I love wildlife. I love landscapes. I love scenics. Um, so that's where it all began for me. I grew up in a, hunting and fishing and camping, and it just being outdoors. My mother threw us outside the minute you had your breakfast, and she didn't let you back in until it was dinner time. So you just were always outside. And of course, my parents would always take, vacations to Maine, and I was just mesmerized by the woods and these big animals that could be in the woods. So that's where it started for me. But over time now, it's I hate to use the word growing up because I really don't really want to grow up. But um, as I travel, I realize that I need people. I think people are an essential part of my personality. And now my photography, I recognize that I need people in my photography. I need socializing. I need interaction. And I just I wrote a blog last week that was, you know, people made some funny comments. But when I look in the mirror, I see a plain bagel, and the world is full of so many other awesome, different colored, different flavored, different textured bagels, and I want to see them all. I think a box of plain bagels is pretty drab and pretty boring. So um, I love when I travel, and whether I take a group of people to Tanzania, I still want to go to tribes and see people because Africa is about more than just wildlife. When I go to Cuba, or the essential story is the human component. I'm in Maine. I'm going to do a nature photography workshop this weekend, but we're going to go some places where we're going to encounter people, and I'm going to encourage people or encourage the photographers to engage with people. And I think people are a critical element of your photographic story, which was what I'm always trying to tell people to work on. Don't wait for, don't go out looking for or waiting for some singular iconic photo. Be a photojournalist and tell the most thorough story of your experience. And then hopefully somewhere in that is that one iconic photo that stands out for you more than some of the others. And people are a part of every story and journey now. You no matter where you go, at every corner of the world, there is the influence of people one way or another.
Was there a turning point in your photography, in terms of how you look at all this?
Well, I mean, I've had several different moments. I think, part of just growing up and maturing and developing your eye and your interest. I think I'm just very curious I'm a homebody by nature, but I'm curious about the world. So every new experience shapes me. And, the first time I went to Cuba, I was like everyone else, like, wow, urban decay and cars. And then, by the second or third trip, I didn't want any of that. I just wanted the people because things had evolved. Um, but probably the three most pivotal things were, starting my own workshop company in 2009 with my good friend Bob Ring, who we spent 9 years together, determined to be the experts on New England, um, as far as photography and photography instruction, and I think we did a pretty good job at that. We worked really, really hard. We were a great team. We complemented each other well. We were great friends. We had great respect for each other. And sadly, Bob passed away a year ago. And prior to his passing away, his health had diminished enough that we sat down, had a long conversation about our future as a team. And fortunately and unfortunately, I'm 55. Bob would be 71 right now, and he had reached a point in his life where he should be spending more time traveling with his wife instead of bumming around in hotels with me taking pictures. So that was when the door opened for me to take a full-time position at Hunt's Photo and Video in Massachusetts as the director of their photography workshops. But when Bob passed away, I just became, like I said, we were a great team. We were a yin and yang. I was all about the emotion of photography, and he was an engineer. So he was always about the structure of photography and the technical aspects. And we blended those things together really well. Our personalities were similar enough that we complemented each other. We liked all the same things, but we didn't like them for the same reasons necessarily, and we didn't photograph them for the same reasons. And I think I have more than ever picked up that baton since we stopped doing workshops together. And then a year ago with his passing, I've just become more determined, to represent him as well as I can. You know, he was an awesome guy. He was funny. He was fun. He was about as faithful and loyal and good as a friend as you'd ever want to meet. And I'm proud to say he was my friend and I was his friend. And what we did for 9 years was unbelievable. And I just take some of that and now I'm hoping I'm influencing, what I'm doing at Hunt's Photo in the same manner, the same integrity about what we do and how we go about it and why we do it. And so Bob's with me every day, and I miss him, but he's with me every day.
Bob left behind a very large body of work, didn't he?
He did. He
What
did.
happened to it?
Still undetermined. And this is a great lesson for all of us photographers. And it's hard to talk about, so please bear with me. I don't know the exact count. Bob had been photographing for many, many years, and he was a very good, very competent, very diligent, very active photographer who loved landscapes. And I think he probably had somewhere in the vicinity of 15 terabytes of images with nowhere to go with them. And I think his wife Judy and his son Stephen, they have done a very good job culling out things that were extra meaningful to them. Family photos, family trips, certain photos that Bob did that maybe perhaps drew more attention and accolades than others. And I know that it's been a very, very laborious and emotional process of culling those images out. And it breaks my heart to think of what they had to go through to get rid of things because it was Bob. By deleting something, you're deleting a part of this person who was everything in your life. And we all need to think about that as photographers. What happens to our stuff? What happens to our gear? What happens to our efforts and all these things that we pour our heart and soul into? What happens when we leave this earth? Because we're all going to leave this earth. And I think every photographer needs to listen to that and organize yourself so that Bob was the most disorganized, organized person I'd ever met in my life. So when I helped his wife, Judy, go through his equipment when he had passed, and, we took some time and waited, Bob kept everything and he kept great records of it. And he even kept it in pretty good order. But even then, it was still incredibly daunting. The emotional part, plus the logistical part of just sorting it out. I can't imagine somebody who was disorganized, how you would find anything or get into computers and organize. He was an engineer, so everything was organized. From that moment, when I finished helping Judy, I invested a tremendous amount of my own time organizing my stuff. I mean, anything could happen on any given day. I mean, it almost happened to me a couple of years ago. My life almost changed drastically for the worst a few years ago, and we take it for granted that isn't going to happen. It will never happen again. But the reality is, it's going to happen at some point, and we need to prepare ourselves for it, not only for ourselves, but for those who come after us. And I would love to think that my photography would make some difference in the world, but the reality is, I just have to hope it makes a difference in my family's world. And anything after that is an extra bonus. Um, but we need to prepare ourselves for that. It's a horrible thing to think about, and it was a horrible thing to witness, but it was a very, very wonderfully poignant reminder. And I didn't envy Judy and Stephen at all, and I still don't, because there's still more work to do. But they have inspired me to get my affairs in order as much as I can, because you never know.
Photography transcends time. It's one of the things I find fascinating about it. What would you want your photography to say to somebody?
Oh, wow. I don't know if we have enough time for that. Well, the first thing I'd wanted to say that I was here. I was here, and I do my best to not look at the world. I want to be part of it, and I want my photos to carry that weight, that feeling, that emotion. And because I'm in astonishment of all of it, I'm in awe of all of it, whether it's a humble little log cabin in the woods or, you know, looking out over the Serengeti. The feeling for me is ultimately the exact same, that I'm in awe of the enormity and the diversity and the uniqueness and the beauty and the not so beautiful globe world. It's really unbelievable. So I just wanted to be a record that I was here and I saw it and I felt it. I didn't check it off my list like been here, done that, don't need to do that again. Um, I want my family to look at what I do and say, "Wow, you saw that, and you were right there, you were in it." Um, which is one of the reasons why I even write about some of the stuff I do, because part of my inspiration to write is that legacy. I mean, maybe it's a small legacy, maybe it's just for my children, but it's a legacy nonetheless. And if I do, when I do leave this earth, I want them to be able to somehow have an affinity or a feeling for what I did and where I went and who I saw and what I saw and what it meant to me. I do my very best to express it.
You hurt your back a few years ago, right?
It did. It did.
Did
Didn't
that
want to hurt it.
change your perspective on things a bit?
Absolutely. Um, I'm 55 years old now. Um, I still play ice hockey. It's my favorite sport in the world. I love its energy. I love its speed. I love its finesse. I love its violence. Um, I love its chaos, and I love the camaraderie that comes from all those things being. There's no team or locker room like a hockey team or a hockey locker room, and so that's I love it to go just blow steam off. And coming up on 3 years ago, I crashed headfirst into the boards after being tripped. And the subsequent result was I broke my neck and I crushed the T6 and T7 vertebrae in my spine. And according to my awesome doctor and neurosurgeon, I came within about a 16th inch of my life being very, very, very different. I didn't suffer any compound fractures or fractures. Everything just crushed like a beer can. And it was a horrific accident. Um, I went home and spent the next, it was on I could think December 16th, just before Christmas. And I spent the next couple of weeks sitting in a chair, sleeping in a chair, propped up, terrified that if I sneezed, was my neck going to snap and change everything in my life? Because that's some of the feedback I was getting. I actually went and did a workshop in January down in Florida and carried around my big, heavy Nikon equipment and big lenses. And I was in excruciating pain, but it's my job. I felt like I needed to do it. And I came home from that, and I knew that there's no way I could never not do what I do. So I had to change everything about the way I did it. I had to downsize all my gear, which I was happy to do. That was no big deal. But it made me very, like, I remember going out by myself. I took a drive just before Christmas. I went down to the common in the town that I live in, and I wanted to just photograph the town common Christmas tree on the town common. And I sat there and cried because I didn't know if I was ever going to get to do it again. And right at that moment, I said, I'm never going to take this for granted ever again. I'm never going to, I still, I'm built for work, if you will say. I'm pretty sturdy. I'm not afraid of work. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of pushing the limits of my body sometimes, but I'm never going to take it for granted ever again. And I think from that came this spectacular, I don't know, enlightenment that I could do more. I needed to do more. I wasn't going to settle for documenting things, and even in my efforts to go deeper in my photography personally and help other people get I still felt I had to go more. I had to go deeper. I had to find something that resonated far deeper than just a job, and I had to embrace the fact. I think everyone in the world has been given some talent a God-given talent. And I think we're all responsible in some way, shape, or form to get it out there and share it and do something productive and good with it. And I can't build a house. I'm not going to be a chef. I'm not going to be a neuroscientist. There's a lot of things. I'm not going to fix and cure cancer, but I can help people learn how to take a pretty good photo. And more importantly, I'm very open and willing to having great conversations with them about why they want to do it. And I can help them dig deeper into the why they do photography. Everyone likes to talk about how many megapixels, what camera, what Apple computer you have, what software you're using, and all that stuff's well and good and it's great. They're all amazing tools and resources. But I like to drill into people and figure out, and remind them, you're the greatest resource. Why are you doing this? And please don't glaze over your answer with a shallow end of the pool. I retired and I need a hobby, or I've got, extra time on my hands. Let's really talk about it, because that's what happened for me when I broke my neck. And I really thought there's a good chance I'm never going to get to do this again, at least in the capacity that I was doing it. And I had to answer those things for myself. That the second time in my life, the first time, when I had to take a look at photography was, I got married, I bought a house, and all my hobbies had to go away. Golf and going away on the weekends with the guys and all these extra things I was doing. And that's when I had to really look at my camera and say, well, I can't give this up. So if I'm going to keep it, I have to commit myself to keeping it with a greater purpose. Like, instead of just snapshots and taking pictures, I wanted to learn more about creating images that had more meaning in my life. But then the second time was okay. Like, I had this horrible accident that could have changed things and thankfully didn't. But I had to dig deep, and I'm grateful for it. I think, I've, as a young man, as a kid, I think there's a lot of my teachers and my sisters and some friends that would probably tell you the same thing. I made a lot of noise, but I didn't say much. And now I'm not content being silent. Um, when you're a kid, you have no. I admire kids that have courage and are willing to go against the grain and be different and embrace being different, because I wasn't. I was like a mainstream trout, just wanted to swim in the middle of the pack and don't pay any attention to me. And it's not that I'm seeking attention now, it's just that I refuse to be silent. That's why I write and I post things on Instagram and Facebook, because I have something to say, because it all means so much to me, and I'm more committed to that than ever. And now, even when I take people out, we're going to start a workshop tomorrow, and I'm sure everybody that's coming is expecting, let's go to this big, grand, amazing scene on day one and let's get really invigorated. We're not. We're going to go to the most mundane, fairly boring place, and we're going to spend 3 hours there. And I'm going to tell them they cannot leave until they make 5 compelling images that tells me how they feel about where we're at, because that is what it's all about. Why do we do this? We do this because we're trying to share our feelings. That's why I say it in my writings, and it's the thesis of my coaching and the thesis of my photography is photograph what you feel. None of us are trying to take a picture of something, at least in my opinion. The reality is we're all trying to take a picture or capture an image of how we feel about something. And we give ourselves all these tools and these resources and these destinations and these objectives and these reasons to go do those things. And what we got to do more than anything is have a conversation with ourselves about why we're doing it. What does it mean to us? Um,
I think the tough part is to tap into that transcendent emotion that everybody gets. I mean, I can take a picture and it means something to me, perhaps, but it may not mean anything to anybody else. How do you bring that together so that you evoke emotion through your photography in others?
that's the greatest challenge right there. You just summed it up. That's the greatest challenge. You can teach anybody how to press the buttons on a camera and set menus. It's the buttons in your heart and your soul and how you feel about what you see that I can't program those for you. So what I need to do is talk to you about it, have you be honest with me. and share it with me. And not every photo that we create is going to resonate, like, Ansel Adams' moonrise over New Mexico. But each one of those images has to resonate with us first. It can't resonate necessarily with someone else until it resonates with you. So I think what I tell people all the time is try to avoid the pitfalls of competition. Camera clubs. I love camera clubs. Camera clubs are a phenomenal thing. So the my cabin here was the greatest catalyst of my photography, but a camera club and being around other like-minded people was my engine. The only downside to a camera club is the competitive nature. Everything has to be quantified. This won, but that didn't win. Why did this one win, but why didn't that one win? And I think there just needs to be more discussion about how people feel about those things. But I try to tell people to, avoid the pitfalls of competition. And even myself, avoid the pitfalls of Facebook and Instagram and other social media. Like, gee, how many likes did I get? People like that? Did people not like that? Why did they like it? It's very hard not to be influenced by those things. The root of it all is just making yourself happy. And I love when I'm out with somebody and we're working on something together and they say to me, I love this one. There you go. Problem solved. You love it. And I'm going to love it because you're telling me why you loved it. And the bonus, I tell people all the time, to do something that you love. If someone else comes along and loves it as well or equally or has some thought or feeling, that's a bonus. The success is your own feeling. The bonus is other people enjoying it. Now, I personally think the greatest thing that can happen from our photography is that we instill or provoke some sort of response. Now, it's not always the response that we want or expected, but it's a response nonetheless. And if you can elicit a response from somebody, you were successful because they looked at it and they thought about it. It's the photos that, unfortunately, this generation where we just swipe on our phones, pass this one, pass this one, pass this one, pass, oops, stop on that one, like it, move on. The idea is to evoke a response. And in order to do so, it's not how many megapixels your camera has or if you use a certain particular processing, software or what lens you used. It's really about how much of you could put into that photo to get the best of me to respond to it. It's a challenge. And I love the challenge. I think it's awesome. I love it.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life. Bump in the Road is a production of Cancer Road Trip. Subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media at Cancer Road Trip, and you can learn more at www.cancerroadtrip.com. Until next time, be safe and be well.